In this video, we're talking alcohol calories. The all-important and ever-popular question as far as alcohol and alcohol calories. Now, the reason why I put a low-carb beer is because it's a very popular option for a lot of beer drinkers, and it's one of my favorites here that I've got in my hand. And if we're looking at the labeling guidelines here, there's a little bit of a gap which I'll explain in a minute. Now, a low-carb beer, it says it's got 88 calories. On the nutritional panel, it says it's got 1 gram of protein, which there's 4 calories in the gram of protein. So we're going to put that over on the calorie side there. It says it's got 1 gram of fat. So there's 9 calories in a gram of fat. So there's your 9 calories there. And there's no carbs. So you're looking at it going, this is an absolutely fantastic option, and I could drink plenty of it without it affecting my gains or my progress in as far as fat loss. So if we calculate those calories, there's the total of 13 calories, because 4 calories in 1 gram of protein, 9 calories in 1 gram of fat, which says on the nutritional panel per serve of 13 calories. But hang on a second, there is 88 calories that it says in one serving here. Where are these calories coming from? Sugar, alcohol. Guys, in the labeling guidelines, sugar, alcohol is more often than not listed, creating this confusion, thinking that you can consume X amount of drinks and get away with it. Now, sugar alcohol contains 7 calories per gram of sugar alcohol, which would make sense as far as where this gap is coming from. Now, we consider sugar alcohol as the 4th macro, of course, but rather than having to add any confusion in regards to putting another table or column together to try and calculate sugar alcohol, we can actually pull this right back and figure out whether we're going to take it from our fat calories for the day or our carbohydrate calories, or both. And the easiest way, and this goes for any beverage that you consume, the easiest way that we can do this is, one, when you're looking at the nutritional panel, don't worry about the nutritional panel, have a look at the total calories it has per serve on the nutritional panel. Now let's go over to this side. There is 9 calories per gram of fat. There are 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. So when we're trying to allocate this, when we are counting macros, is we either divide 88 calories by 9 to get how many grams of fat we must take from our daily macros to allocate for that beer, or divide 88 by 4, which will get us 22 grams of carbs, which we must allocate if we were to consume 1 low-carb beer. That is probably the best example, or the easiest way of when you are allocating drinks, is allocate that extra space for the day rather than having to scan it in, because it's not going to tell you the true representation of where these alcohol sugars are going. So you may as well pre-plan if there's a social event coming up, find out roughly how many drinks that you are going to consume and figure out whether you're going to take it from your fat calories or your carb calories. And the easiest way you can do that is, if you are eating a higher fat intake, well, it will only make sense to take some alcohol calories from your fat, or if you are in a high carb diet, you can definitely subtract from your carbs. If you're moderate in both, by all means, you can take a little bit from both. We're going to go through a few examples next. Now let's go through example 1, being Johnny. Now Johnny, he is on 200 grams of carbohydrates, 200 grams of protein, and 60 grams of fat, for a total of 2140 calories, which is relatively average. Now, Johnny on a Friday night, he wants 4 of these beers, which we all know now are at the 88 calories. We're going to disregard the actual nutritional panel. We know there are 4 calories in 1 gram of carbohydrate. So what we're going to do is for that 1 beer, we're going to figure out how many carbs are in that 1 beer. As I said before, with any beverage, find out what the total calories are and then work from there. So 88 divided by 4 will get us 22 grams of carbohydrates that we need to allocate for 1 beer. And if obviously we're going to have 4 of those beers, we've got to multiply that by 4, which gives us 88 grams of carbohydrates that we have to allocate for Johnny to drink these 4 beers guilt-free and with confidence. So if we do our math correctly, we take 88 grams from 200 grams of carbs because that's where we're going to allocate it. He is not on enough fats to confidently rob those calories from fats. It's just going to be too difficult for Johnny from my personal recommendation. So he has a relatively moderate amount of carbohydrates that we can take from. So that's exactly what we're going to do. 200 minus 88. That gives us 112 grams of carbohydrates. So let's say, for example, on a Thursday night, Johnny's planning for his 4 beers. All he will have to do now to allocate for the 4 low carb beers is consume the same amount of protein that he normally does, 60 grams of fat, and obviously 112 grams of carbohydrates, which is the result of subtracting the 88 carb calories that we found from the 200, giving us 112 grams of carbohydrates that Johnny can confidently consume with allocating for his 4 low carb beers. Let's move on to example number 2. Now, example number 2 being Lisa. Now, Lisa is on 120 grams of protein, 85 grams of fat a day, and 100 grams of carbohydrates with a total calories of around 1645. Now, let's say, for example, Lisa has a work function on a Friday and she's allocated and wants to allocate 3 small glasses of wine. Lisa's found out that each glass of small white wine is roughly around 120 calories. So without looking at the nutritional panel, Lisa knows it would be smart based on her macros to take these calories and allocate them under fats. So how are we going to do that? Basically exactly the same as what we did in the previous example, but dividing it by 9 to get your fat calories. As we know, there is 9 calories per gram of fat. So if we divide 120 by 9, we get approximately 13.3 grams of fat in 1 small glass of wine that we will have to allocate for Lisa's overall daily calorie intake. But it's not 1 glass of wine, it's 3. So we've got to multiply that by 3 and let's round it off to around the 40 grams of fat. So as we can see here, that let's say on the Friday, Lisa will have to plan to eat these calories, being 120 grams of protein, which is the same, 100 grams of carbohydrates, which is the same, but we're going to subtract that 40 grams of fat, leaving her with 45 grams of fat to consume for the Friday to allocate safely with Lisa's 3 small glasses of wine. So once again, we found the total calories of that glass of wine being 120 calories. We've divided it by 9 because we know there are 9 calories per gram of fat. So 120 divided by 9 leaves you around that 13 grams of fat. She wants 3 glasses of wine, so we multiply that by 3, giving us a rough of 40 grams. 40 grams is taken from her daily fat intake, leaving her on the Friday to consume 120 grams of protein, 45 grams of fat, and 100 grams of carbs to allocate for her 3 glasses of wine when taking it from fat calories. And here we have it, example number three. Example number three is Stefan. Stefan can either be a male or a female. But Stefan has relatively moderate calories across the board, and we are going to allocate these in both fats and carbohydrates. Now Stefan has a work function on a Friday, and he or she is sitting down trying to figure out on a Thursday night what they need to consume on the Friday to break even. Now Stefan wants 3 small glasses of white wine, which we found are around 120 calories, give or take, and 3 low carb beers, which we know are around 88 calories. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the wine from the carbs and the beer from the fat. How this is distributed is based on each individual, and I'm just giving a pure example here. Obviously we wouldn't want to take everything from fats because there would be nothing left. So Stefan has made a wise choice taking a little bit from both. So we know 120 calories in 1 glass of wine. If we divide that 120 calories by 4, we get the carbs total that we need to take it from in the calories being 30 grams for 1 small glass of white wine. He wants 3, so we're obviously going to multiply that by 3, giving us a total of 90 grams of carbohydrates for the wine that we've got to account for. Moving on to the low carb beers, we know they're 88 calories each, and to get our fat total, we've got to divide those 88 calories by 9 because there are 9 calories per gram of fat, giving us approximately 9.7 grams of fat for 1 beer that we've got to allocate in Stefan's macros. Obviously Stefan wants to have his 3 beers, he or her, sorry, and we've got to multiply that 9.7 by 3, giving you a total of 29.3. We'll round it off to 29 in this case to take from fat calories, all right? So moving back here, Stefan is on 180 grams of protein, 80 grams of fat, and 250 grams of carbohydrates, so relatively moderate across the board with a total of 2440 calories. So not poverty calories, and again, the higher the calories are, the more freedom and flexibility one has to move. So in knowing that we need to allocate 90 grams of carbohydrates and around 29 grams of fat, we need to move along here to show what Stefan needs to consume in order to break even with his alcohol calories. So we need to subtract roughly 29 grams from 80, giving us 51 grams of fat Stefan has to consume on the Friday to break even, and subtract 90 from 250 grams of carbs where Stefan normally is, gives us 160 grams of carbohydrates. So basically, to allocate and break even, as I say, Stefan on the Friday with his macros would need to adjust them to 180 grams of protein, 51 grams of fat, and 160 grams of carbohydrates. It is so important to know and understand this information, because when you are faced with a social outing, a work event, a birthday, a family do, you have the knowledge and understanding on how to properly manipulate macros based on this, because this is something, especially being lifestyle or in a dieting period, it is absolutely crucial to know, because consuming excess amount of calories, obviously our body is going to take full advantage and store those for later as body fat very effectively. So we want to minimize any sort of spill as such, and giving you guys the tools and the guidance to understand how to manipulate alcohol calories accordingly. Again, labels can be very misleading at times, so I hope these examples have given a lot more clarity as far as what scenario and approach that you need to take. Feel free to go back through and have a look at all the examples, and not only that, is if you wish to contact us, all the details are below.